Hello, I am Jana Rufina Ngwesi Makoge, a mathematics teacher from Cameroon. I am a dedicated and passionate maths teacher with 10 years experience in teaching. My passion for problem solving and sharing knowledge helps me to create simple, fun, and straightforward lessons to inspire my students for academic excellence. I have been privileged to work with students from diverse backgrounds, and this has helped broaden my perspective to identify and center my teaching techniques around the unique needs and capabilities of my students. My number one goal is to see my students succeed and overcome their fears in mathematics. Teaching to me isn't only about fulfilling the school curriculum, but also to inspire, motivate, and help the students achieve their full potential. I am also equipped with basic technology skills which I can improvise into my lesson. I have a natural interest for numbers and problem solving. Outside the classroom, I enjoy reading educational related books, dancing, singing, keep fit, cooking, traveling, puzzles and brain teaser, taking adventure around nature, fashion, arts, and craft. My number one motivator is my dad. My dad is not a mathematics teacher, but a geography teacher. Growing up, seeing him enjoy teaching and how he teaches and impacts students' life made me want to become a teacher. Now, in my secondary school days, I I had amazing teachers who inspired me and instilled the love of maths fun in me. As I grow older, I saw how the lack of understanding and math anxiety hinder people from achieving their full potential. This made me want to become a math teacher. Not just a math teacher, but a math teacher who will help students develop strong foundation in mathematics skills, make math accessible, enjoyable, and relevant in their everyday life. I am opportune to empower students with mathematics skills and the confidence they need to succeed. My interest in fashion, arts, and craft make me to gain an additional skill in designing beautiful headwear accessories, which I can confidently coach students to transform materials into simple head accessories and also teach them basic techniques in cloth mending. To prepare my lesson, I start by reviewing the school curriculum's objective from which I will set my own objective. Then determine the teaching technique that I will use in delivering the lesson. Then sort for materials from the textbook in my possession and also related materials online. My lesson plan is usually divided into three parts: the introductory, the body, and conclusion. The introductory part, I start by reviewing the previous lesson with the aid of short oral quiz, which will help me assess the student's understanding. Moving forward, I state the objective of the lesson for the day, then review their previous knowledge with short oral question. Moving forward, I introduce the topic with a real life scenario which they will identify the mathematical concept which they know. Now I go ahead to introduce the topic, define the basic terms that they need to know, give them the different procedures that they need to know in order to solve problems in the lesson, then go ahead to solve example for proper understanding of the procedure. Normally, I solve three examples. The first example is a simple example to be able to identify the different concepts in the problem. The second is a little bit complex, and the third is advanced, which I want them to apply what they have mastered and how much they can manipulate the different procedure no matter the problem that is presented to them. Then I go ahead to give them an in-class practice exercise usually 2 or 3, to assess their understanding of their lesson. And as we do correction, I expect them to ask questions for better understanding and clarification of any doubts. In conclusion, I do a review of the lesson for the day by asking short oral quiz questions. Then give them assignment to take home, assignment to help review the lesson after the class, and also prepare them for the next lesson. I teach in a technical school which offers different trades, and mathematics is taught based on the trades and the classes. I make use of 2 teaching methods: the problem-based approach and the competency-based approach. I choose these 2 methods because they are both centered around the learner, and the learners need to be effectively and actively engaged in the lesson. But most often, I get to use the competency-based approach because it is well structured and support the different learning environment, and also get the less inspired students engaged in the lesson. Also, in Cameroon, the competency-based approach is the approved method to evaluate my students. I have lesson test, which is for the per lesson of the day. We use short oral questions to review the lesson. In-class practice exercise to evaluate the understanding. Then unit test to evaluate the understanding of all the lesson in that unit. We have 3 terms in Cameroon. So each term, you evaluate the student for the course covered throughout the term. Then we have the final exam, which is at the end of the year, to evaluate the students' understanding of the whole course for their year. In my class, the students are engaged in asking questions, listening, and responding to questions. Following my lesson plan, the first activity will be for students to answer questions to review the previous lesson. Then answer questions to review their previous knowledge. Then listen to me lecture on the concept necessary to understand the lesson and the procedures necessary to solving problems in that lesson. Then also do activities in the class to assess their understanding. In Cameroon, we have limited resources to incorporate technology into our daily lesson. But we have e-learning centers which I encourage the students to visit when they have the time. But in my own little way, I use PowerPoints in class, which I'll print out and paste on the board to teach the student. For example, if I'm to do algebraic expression, I'll use 5 slides. The first slide will be to introduce the terms in algebraic expression using a simple scenario. Second slide will include definition of the measured terms which they need to know in the lesson. For example, definition of term, constant, variable, coefficient. The third slide will be the different types of expression, defining them: monomial, binomial, multinomial, polynomials. The fourth slide will be the different procedures and methods, also examples to solving algebraic expression. The fifth slide will be a little attractive, animated, using different terms, using different characters to represent the letters and coefficient in algebraic expression. To evaluate my students, I have lesson test, which is for the per lesson of the day. We use short oral questions to review the lesson. In-class practice exercise to evaluate the understanding. Then unit test to evaluate the understanding of all the lesson in that unit. We have 3 terms in Cameroon. So each term, you evaluate the student for the course covered throughout the term. Then we have the final exam, which is at the end of the year, to evaluate the students' understanding of the whole course for the year. When I notice my class is noisy, I keep focused on teaching and try to identify those who are making noise and call their names out to get their attention. If I was in the course of explaining a lesson, I will use them to explain the lesson, calling out their name, because at the mention of your name, you want to know where your name is coming from, who is calling you. So I get their attention. And sometimes when it involves almost the whole class, it's difficult to identify them. I will use a fun related game to get them back into the class and engage, because they want to know what the game is all about, and voila, I have them all back to me to listen to what I have to tell them. My most difficult experience I had was being disrespected by a female student. She kept making noise in class, and when I tried to call her to order, she ignored. Seeing her getting other people involved in her noise and keeping the class so noisy, I called her out and gave her a short quiz on and also gave her a condition that she will only sit upon providing the correct answer to that quiz. Now everybody was alert and didn't want to be called out to answer a quiz in class, so they all stayed quiet while she stayed quiet, struggling to provide the correct answer. As a teacher, it is challenging to teach afternoon class, more still mathematics. So you need to be extremely flexible to teach maths in the afternoon. There was this class in the clothing industry of the 8th grade, which I had to teach that day. Walking into class, the previous subject was drawing, pattern, and textile. So I met students with fabrics on their table, and the topic I was to teach that day was fraction. When I walked into class, seeing them struggling to gather their materials and keep, I was like, no, I stopped them and asked them to position their materials on their table. Now I use the fabrics to illustrate the types of fraction, operation in fraction, and how the precision in fraction all is all about. Now using this fabric make teaching and understanding easy and fun that day. And so I went about teaching maths that day so smoothly and nicely.